Go. Rachel, we can't start this without you. You doing all right? Good. All right, everybody, it is Thursday at 4 o'clock, and like we have been doing in other days, we are showing some school spirit to start today. This mask is from Marion County High School, home of the Knights. They are working to create a safe atmosphere for a return to school. As their principal says, the Knight way is the safe way. Wearing a facial covering is absolutely critical to what we want to be able to do in the Commonwealth moving forward. Protect lives, protect people's health, protect our economy, ultimately get all of our kids back to some in-person classes. We need people to wear it, and we need people to want to wear a mask. You could do a lot with it today. I'm showing a little school spirit today. I'm also getting to celebrate my faith. I've been wearing this one other parts of the day. This is Disciples of Christ, the denomination that I belong in. And so there are so many different things that you can do with these facial coverings. Have a little fun with them. But remember, by wearing them, you protect other people and you help us meet objectives that I think all of us share. Going to start today with a little bit of good news. Earlier today, we were able to announce the completion of 4 projects in eastern Kentucky. I think it was about $14 million, jobs in Perry County, a new tourist opportunity in Prestonsburg, really great opportunities, an industrial park that we're able to stabilize and will help create jobs in its area. But we have more good news today for our eastern Kentucky counties. So today we're highlighting the hard work of our local governments and what they're doing each and every day. We can't say thank you enough for everything you are doing to keep families safe. And we know that you're hurting. That's why we put aside $300 million in CARES Act funding for local governments with expenses related to COVID that's administered by our Department of Local Government. Today I'm excited to announce the final approval of more than $3.8 million to local governments in eastern Kentucky, 15 in total. They're to Clay County, Greenup, Jackson, Johnson, Knott, Lewis, McGoffin, and Martin counties. And then the communities and cities of Beattyville, Campton, Cattlesburg, Corbin, Jackson, Moorhead, and Whitesburg. This funding is going to help our county budgets that are already stretched so much. Again, this is a program that we've put aside significant dollars to. We see applications coming in, but I will say I think there's almost 40 counties that haven't yet applied. We need to make sure that those dollars that can help you in your budget are applied for so that we can ultimately process that and those dollars can go to help. And I jumped the gun a little bit because I started off talking about the importance of facial coverings and showing a little school spirit of a high school. We've got a video today of one of those students who is wanting to make sure that she is spreading the message that so many need to hear, that wearing a facial covering is the right thing.
Hi, my name is Madeline Blankenship, and I'm a junior at Pulaski County High School in Somerset, Kentucky. The reason I wear a mask is to be a good role model in my community. By setting a good example, we can keep each other much safer and return to normal much quicker. Mask up, Kentucky.
You know, and a lot of what we do and we see on an everyday basis, our young people get it. And while we need, with our college-age students and others, to make sure we continue with the right types of behaviors, the willingness to wear a mask, especially in our students, I think is so important, and we're seeing such a positive response, and every day a better response around Kentucky. Another piece of good news, and that's with Serve Kentucky, an important part of state government that promotes volunteerism in so many different areas throughout Kentucky. Obviously, when people volunteer and volunteer for good causes, good things happen. We support good organizations and we provide help to so many Kentuckians. So our Cabinet for Health and Family Services is known as the Helping Agency. because of the assistance that it provides, especially through this pandemic. So some more good news from this agency, as it's had a lot of either awards won or dollars that have come in because of their good work. The Serve Kentucky Office of the Cabinet is now allowing free access for volunteer-based organizations to the state's recruitment and management website, Volunteer Kentucky. This platform helps volunteer programs recruit new and manage current volunteers, increase engagement, manage events, track involvement, and produce reports, a necessity for grant funding. It's a resource to where those that may have a little more time right now and are looking for that opportunity to truly help people, or even as we come out of this pandemic, that want to make sure that they're giving back, and by giving back you can find a whole lot of purpose and happiness and satisfaction. This website is going to help connect you to so many good organizations. The site's available to 501c3 nonprofits, government agencies, schools, faith-based organizations, and neighborhood associations recognized as such by the applicable city and county. Bottom line is it gives Team Kentucky's philanthropic community another tool to help more people. At a time where we see more desire to help our fellow human being, this is going to help connect us a little more at a time where we can't necessarily always feel that close connection. And we know it is more important now than ever. So very excited about this new way to put people together and to do positive things. So today's report continues, significantly high numbers, though nothing like yesterday. Today we're reporting 785 new cases of COVID-19. After all duplicates are removed, and I think there were 44 duplicates removed in the last audit process, our total cases are 37,686. Our positivity rate is just up a little bit from yesterday, 5.67%. Again, we need to see a significant reduction in that rate. Other entities have us at a higher percentage than that. We believe that our calculation is the most accurate, but regardless of which one you take, we know that we have a lot of work to do to create the type of safe environments that we need to. The good news is, even with yesterday's numbers and today's, I still believe by the end of the week we're going to see that we are not in that exponential increase that we were seeing until a couple weeks ago. It means that wearing a facial covering is working. Other steps are working, but we need you to stick with it, and we cannot make decisions that are ultimately going to cause a significant spread right now, because that's going to make everything we want to do that much harder. Total number of tests to date, 730,362. Currently hospitalized, 658 Kentuckians. Currently in the ICU, 140 Kentuckians. Currently on a ventilator, 97 Kentuckians we need to be praying for. Number of Kentuckians that have recovered, 8,965. Again, we think it's a lot more than that, but this is a really hard statistic to track. New cases by county. We have, again, a number of cases in the double digits, and as you see cases, they can jump up so quick in a county, and we have so many that have gone from very few cases to a significant amount in less than a week. Jefferson, 189, Fayette, 61, Warren County, 29. And just to delve into that a little bit, because I know that decisions are going to be made in Warren County, we had 6 school-age kids just in today's report that tested positive. 18-year-old, 12-year-old, 16-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 14-year-old. That's really concerning, given that typically these age kids aren't tested as often as everybody else. To have 6 just today. I had asked yesterday for the number in the last 3 weeks in Warren County. It was 86 kids, ultimately 18 and under, in 3 weeks that had tested positive. That is incredibly concerning. And I hope that in making decisions we would see that county, which is viewed as the second hottest county in Kentucky by the White House for uncontrolled spread in the red zone, with over, in the White House's estimation, a 10% positivity rate, that we will ultimately reach good decisions where we are patient enough to make those good plans to reopen our schools work at a time when they can work. Kenton County, 25 new cases. Clay County, 23. Barron County, 21. Hardin County, I think they made the vote too. They have 6 school-aged children in today's report alone that have tested positive that without a test could very easily have walked into a school. 16, 14, 17, 15, 18, and 5 years old. Presumably that would be in or around going into kindergarten. So remember, we don't have that many younger people being tested of those ages. It's really concerning, and it's what we're seeing nationwide. They had 100,000 kids test positive in just the last couple of weeks of July. We are seeing an explosion of positive tests amongst our young people. Let's make sure that the decisions we make set us up for actual success and don't set us back as a state. And as I've said before, let's not experiment with the health of our children. Let's see, Madison County, 21, Pulaski, 20, Bullitt, 18, Nelson, 16, Franklin, 15, McCracken, 15, Callaway, 13, Davis, 12, Greene, 12, Logan, 11. Think about Greene County. Greene County isn't one of our largest populated counties. 12 positive cases today. Logan, 11, Shelby, 11, Campbell, 10, and there are about 5 counties that have 9, and then it goes on further from there. Another day of significant numbers of kids just under 5 testing positive in counties all across Kentucky. So please know that this thing is spreading significantly and is spreading significantly amongst our young people. That's why I think that we have to make sure that we are patient and that we make the right decisions, not decisions driven by anxiety and how long we've been cooped up. And remember, I mean, even the most important plans in our history have been delayed when there's been a need. You know, when D-Day was supposed to be the day before, but weather was a problem, they didn't say, well, we developed a really great plan, let's go ahead. It was important. It was one of the most important military operations in our country's history, and they waited until the conditions were right. Wisdom and patience. Long-term care numbers, active cases up 41 residents, 46 staff, an additional death attributable, which is a resident, 1 additional facility. So again, we see that these are hot spots, if you will, that we have to continue protecting our individual residents and staff. We do rank either in the middle or in the better part of the pack in how we are dealing with this nationwide, and our new testing protocols we believe are going to help improve these numbers further. Child care facilities, 7 new facilities with at least 1 positive, 5 new staff, and 5 new children that have ultimately tested positive. Let's have some good news. We continue to see folks across the Commonwealth buying into Mask Up Kentucky, making sure they do their part and trying to make, whether it's their place of business or their home, wherever they're going, as safe as it can be. This is a new restaurant in Russell Springs and the family that runs it, making sure that they are setting a good example and creating a safe environment. This is what we need to see from all of our restaurants and our business community, and we appreciate them. This is WKCTC's president, President Reese, again, talking about how important it is to wear a mask, showing his spirit. We appreciate his leadership and so many others throughout this. How about the Lafayette Cross Country Boosters? I'm a graduate of another Fayette County high school, but I am a proud graduate of Fayette County Public Schools. Seeing all the great things that they are doing at this school has been really special for me to see over the last several years, and we appreciate their cross-country athletes stepping up and doing their part. And finally, we've shown a lot of school spirit. How about UPike? UPike going above and beyond, making sure even the mascot is setting the right example out there for our people. All right, we're going to have Dr. Stack come up, talk about the trends that he is seeing, and also his reasoning and support behind the recommendation we made on Monday.
Thank you, Governor. Do you have my slides, James? Oh, thank you. So thank you very much, Governor. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are and then how that plays into the school decision on Monday. And so where we are, if you look on the left, you're familiar with these graphs if you've watched me before. So this is from the 91-divoc.com website. And it's data that I got these images this morning from their website, I think through yesterday. So the orange lines are Georgia, the state of Georgia, and the blue lines are Kentucky, which was quite random but appropriate that those colors were picked. So the blue line shows Kentucky's new cases on the left over time. And if you see, Georgia and Kentucky were kind of parallel with each other for a period of time there after that initial spike that Georgia had. About 70 days ago, you see Georgia started that exponential climb, which we really want to avoid in Kentucky because that's when you start having a lot of cascading problems. Kentucky managed to defer that climb, and I think what was happening there was when some of these states barreled forward and opened up much more quickly and much more aggressively, you saw their case counts start to surge very quickly. So I've said before, what we did in Kentucky was we had a measured, phased approach, and we tried to go just a little bit more slowly and thoughtfully and see what happened in these places that charged forward. And we saw what happened, and then we intervened. And on July 10th, we put in place the mask mandate, and then we subsequently restricted gatherings to 10 or less and placed in the other restrictions for bars and restaurants. But I think what we see is that the mask mandate is what impacted and has hopefully flattened that curve, and we'll see as this week ends where our totals fall. The graph on the right-hand side, I'm sensitive to the fact I don't want to just use death statistics. This is hospitalizations, and now this is cumulative hospitalizations. But what you can see is how Georgia started to quickly diverge from Kentucky, and they started having a lot more hospitalizations. So on a per capita basis, Georgia has about twice as many hospitalizations as Kentucky does. Now, when I had the mortality chart, when you look at the mortality chart, it's actually more than 4 times as many fatalities in Georgia, and that line diverged much more widely. So the point I'm making here is when we lift these restrictions and we do it without care and thoughts, and there's been a lot of dispute about the masks in Georgia, which I won't go into, but I think they are seeing the consequences of not following that simple public health guidance to use these masks. And so if we go to the next slide, this plays into schools. So Georgia, again, is one of the first states to really go forward with opening a lot of schools. And what you see on here on the left is a district announces plans to bring students back to school after they temporarily closed. And so North Paulding High School had 9 cases of COVID-19 confirmed within the first week back to school, and that number of confirmed cases had risen to 35, according to a letter sent to parents on August 12th. So they had a rapid escalation from 9 to 35 in just the first week of school. So the other news article there, those are also from Georgia, and the one on the top is Cherokee High School, and they said that last Monday there had been 59 positive test cases reported in the district, and that the cases have resulted in a 2-week quarantine for 925 students and staff. So think about that, 925 people who are quarantined for 2 weeks because of their exposure at school. Just think about the impact that would have on you if you have to do that. And then they closed a second school in that same county, in Cherokee County, and nearly 300 students and staff are quarantined after they confirm more than a dozen cases of COVID-19. And some will say, okay, well, you've just looked at Georgia. Let's do the next slide, James. So the next slide shows 2 other articles, and I'm not going to be exhaustive about this, but I think these are enough to be representative. So you have on the left Kenner, Louisiana. This was a charter school, so it's not public school, it's a charter school. And the entire first grade at Kenner Discovery School was quarantined after a positive COVID-19 test. And then if you look to the right, we've got Muncie, Indiana, I believe, and they have quarantined within days of kicking off the school year. They've quarantined a whole slew of folks. And so the problem spreads very quickly. It's across multiple states. So just to avoid any lack of certainty, I very much support the decision that the governor made. I respect it's a very difficult decision. I also am cognizant of the many trade-offs that there are with delaying schools. We need to get kids back to school, but we need to get kids back to school safely. And we are at the all-time high, even though we hope we're plateauing. Our disease burden in the Commonwealth of Kentucky for COVID-19 is at its all-time high. And when the folks from the White House came in and talked about this with us, they were very clear that when things are escalating like they were specifically in Kentucky, we needed to take aggressive action to do those things that reduce the risk of transmission. And unfortunately, school is a high risk of transmission for a number of reasons. So I am hopeful, as we have done along this journey, we will learn lessons from these other places that have done this earlier than us. We will be able to help refine our guidance and our recommendations in the Commonwealth, and we'll be able to give good guidance to the students, to the teachers, to the parents, and try to do this as safely as we possibly can when it appears we've learned lessons that will help make that possible. And I have one more slide, James. I have to urge you, it's getting to this time now. Please get your flu shot. Let's just put this in context. Though it's never a good time to get sick, and when you get the flu you can feel quite miserable, it is particularly not a good time to get influenza in the middle of a global pandemic when the symptoms for influenza look very much like the symptoms for COVID-19. If you get COVID-19, it's not just stay at home and have chicken noodle soup. If you get COVID-19, you get quarantined, you have to stay home for a period of time. And if you get COVID-19 and you're in a high-risk category, it's not just the flu. The statistics for your outcome are much worse than for influenza. And so please get your flu shot. We need everyone to do this. We have to keep influenza as suppressed as we possibly can. In a bad year with influenza, our hospitals are strained with keeping up with just influenza patients. That alone puts hospitals at or beyond capacity. And as an emergency physician, we had times we couldn't get transfers into the big academic centers because they were hit so hard with influenza. If you take that and you add it on top of COVID-19, you run into a really bad recipe for the hospitals not having enough capacity to take care of folks, and a lot of added difficulty for both patients and for the healthcare providers trying to sort who has the flu or the common cold or influenza. You can't prevent the common cold with the vaccine, but you can prevent a lot of influenza. Even though it doesn't protect everyone, it protects a lot of people. So please get the flu shot. And all these other things we're doing, wearing your mask, keeping your distance, washing your hands, and of course getting tested if you have symptoms for the COVID-19, those other things we're doing for public health are the exact same things that lower the risk of other respiratory infections. So if we do this well, we should be able to suppress all sorts of infections for this year, and everybody can be a bit healthier, but we've got to follow this guidance and this recommendation. So thank you very much, Governor. I appreciate the opportunity.
You know, I think that the approach where we make sure that we are not first, that we are the smartest, not the fastest, that we learn from others' mistakes and make sure we're not making them with our own kids. I think we're already seeing lessons. Now, one lesson certainly is masks have to be mandatory and enforced in every school, because that 900 people quarantined in Georgia, there is not, and to my understanding in that situation, a full-on requirement that was enforced. And look at where it went. I'll tell you another one. And we got to really think about these lessons and what it means to have the support that's needed ahead of time. So when this last Tuesday, we were waiting on I was waiting in isolation on my results, but given how I was feeling, the belief that they'd come back differently than they did, I saw the impact just in a short period of time based on my wife talking to me about it on my kids. And their first question is, are you and Dad going to die? Their second question is, are we going to die? And the third question is, who's going to take care of us? And while that was mainly just personally difficult, I know it's a lot more difficult for families, especially that have to go into quarantine. And so if we're going to do something at a time when we know there are going to be a lot of families and a lot of kids going into quarantine, let's make sure that we recognize how traumatic that can be on those children. Let's make sure we have already set up the mental health counseling that we will need for kids to go through that. I mean, telling a child that was otherwise in school just until the day before that they're 2 weeks in their house and there's uncertainty about what this disease does or who else might have it. Let's make sure that we are putting them first and that we are prepared for that trauma that will come along with it, and that is within the rest of our calculation. All right, we're moving fast today. We're going to open it up for questions, even though it is not even 4:30 yet, and we have a packed house. I only have a couple of written questions, and because we got them here for the first time in a while, let's start with Al Cross.
Thank you, Governor. Is there anything in state law in terms of enforcement that would enable you to order businesses simply not to accept money from people who don't wear masks?
The question is there anything in state law where I could make businesses not accept money from people who don't wear masks? I believe under the executive order, businesses are required to ensure that people wear masks. I also believe that those who refuse to wear masks and refuse to leave and insist on being checked out fall within potentially criminal trespass. And I believe that our law enforcement has agreed with that. And so I believe between the executive order and ultimately that other authority that we have what we need. But our businesses just need to have a no shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. And it can be that simple.
So what I hear you saying is that's what they should tell customers, that we can't take your money.
Yes, absolutely. Businesses should be saying we can't check you out unless you're wearing a mask, and that makes it a whole lot easier on them, and they can just blame me. I'm used to it by now. Nick.
In rural Appalachia, I think there are a lot of parents that are concerned right now because the idea of teaching virtually is not an option to them. There's also concern that some parents may not be committed enough to helping their child learn virtually. I mean, there's not Wi-Fi everywhere in Appalachia, of course. So are you fearful at all that any child is going to be left behind, or is there any expectation that some will be?
The question is on Appalachia and broader, with distance learning and its challenge. Am I worried that kids are going to be left behind? Absolutely. But children, I believe, are going to be in a worse situation if we expose them to very significant health risks that are here right now, that they are subjected to quarantine or the potential problems that can come with getting this virus, especially in Appalachia, but all over Kentucky. We have more grandparents raising their grandkids than ever before, and the potential loss of a caregiver in a situation where you've already lost so much when this virus is so aggressive, especially to people over a certain age. Now, we are working on plans right now to try to boost internet access all over Kentucky and potentially to even provide individual help to specific students. That's a duty that we have to have in this instance. It tells you how important rural broadband, hotspots, and the rest are. We think we'll have a couple more announcements on that. I know that there is some significant funding that's come in that we're reading all the fine print on, that we are ready to deploy. But yes, I mean, I desperately want to get our kids back to in-person learning. Oh yes, they will be. All of our plans to boost internet access are going to be aimed where there is not internet access, specifically rural Kentucky, or if there are parts of urban Kentucky that are a desert, if you will, for internet access. Okay.
Local activists have called it inappropriate to hold the Derby this fall in the midst of the Breonna Taylor investigation. Do you feel it's insensitive to move forward with the event?
The question is about whether it's insensitive to hold the Derby in the midst of the Breonna Taylor investigation. Surely. I think it's been 150 days. Surely there will be a resolution by that point. And I believe that we got a little information on the process. I think it was last week. I think that was very helpful for people. Again, I think that if we can get more information, not on, it doesn't have to be the specific details that people think they can't divulge, but exactly where it is and what's going on and what the next steps are, I think that'll help people process. But I don't think this should extend another month unless we understand some very compelling reason. All right, today Ashland Independent Schools voted to follow the recommendation despite discussing their disapproval with the word recommendation and what they deemed threats from the Department of Education. Parents at the meeting called me a dictator and a bully. What's my reaction? And the names, well, I'm just trying to make the best recommendation I can for the safety of your children. It means my children aren't going to be back in school as early as I would like them to. We look at the numbers every day. Our Department of Public Health works on this virus every day. I'm seeing huge numbers of schools struggle with that. I'm worried about the health and safety of your kids, of their teachers, and of their caregivers. I'm brand to be an education first governor, and I'm trying to make a safety decision. So that's what I have to say about that.
President's comments regarding the battle over the post office funding as it relates to expanded mail-in voting that might be necessary for November.
I haven't seen the president's direct comments on the postal service, but I mean, we can't defund our post office, and we can't do it in the midst of an election, and it certainly can't look like it's because of the election. So, I mean, that hopefully that's just comments being made. We need our postal service. We were just talking about rural Kentucky and how critical it is for so many parts of Kentucky. We need a strong post office. It has to be funded during this election. Being able to cast a ballot by mail if you are concerned about the coronavirus is absolutely critical to conducting a safe election. I don't just think that it would be silly to start defunding the post office right now. I think it'd be dangerous, but ultimately I think this is something that was just said, and hopefully won't go any further than that. In what circumstances are rapid result tests administered in the state, and how likely is it they'll be expanded so more of the general public can get access to those tests? We have a number of rapid result tests throughout the state in different places. The federal government is going to provide more. They're going to prioritize our long-term care facilities so that visitors especially and employees as they come can get those tests. As always, we're going to look at different testing platforms at their accuracy, and we're going to make sure that that everybody knows, at least to the best of our knowledge, what type of tests they're getting and what the limitations are or are not. Stu.
Are smokers who don't have underlying health conditions still at a higher risk of getting COVID and having complications?
It's a Dr. Stack question about smokers and whether they are at higher risk of getting COVID or having greater complications. All right.
I'm going to thank you, Stu, for the opportunity to talk about public health that's not COVID-19. So I don't know right now if smokers are having worse outcomes, but nobody should be smoking. Smoking is bad for your health. It's bad for your lungs, causes cancer, it causes you to have lung disease as you go on in life, COPD, emphysema, and things like that. So all things being equal, people who have structural lung disease caused by long-term tobacco use probably do have worse outcomes because their lungs are in worse shape going into this. But you shouldn't be smoking. So encourage everybody, don't ever start smoking.
And that is the Commissioner for Public Health. Debbie.
Stack testified, there was some discussion about how, by some of the committee members, about how they can't believe the information they're getting. They don't think it's reliable about statistics on COVID and details they have. And the chairman said that suggested partisanship was an issue and there hadn't been enough collaboration with legislators.
Partisanship on the numbers? On the, okay. So I think the question is based on a program review committee today where they legislators said that they didn't believe in the accuracy, I guess, of the information they're getting, and that's somehow partisan. I can't figure out the other part. But let me tell you this, every positive that we report is connected to an individual that we put on a chart that is put out there every day. Every death is put on a chart, and Crystal, I do need today's, which I know I don't have, that's put out there every day. The positivity rate is calculated on the 7-day average every day and put out there. The number of tests that we have reported to us are put out there every day. All they have to do is go to a website and they get all the information, or just about all the information that we have. We're being fully transparent in the type of tests and the rest. But here's the thing, if you don't want to believe the numbers because they won't let you do what you want to do, you'll find different reasons to attack them. I believe our numbers are as good as anybody else's out there. We have been transparent when there have been problems with software and the like. We go back and we deduplicate. You want to talk about it not being higher than we removed, I think, 44 duplicates today. So we make sure that that is subtracted from the state number. We have a committee that looks at the deaths that we report, which some states don't, to ensure that COVID is at least a factor. I believe that while we have data coming in from a lot of different places, and it's a bear to manage because there's so many different labs, and this thing has come at us so fast and we're responding so fast, we are fully transparent in our data, and just to question it because you don't like it and then to try to find reasons just isn't helpful at all. You can have different views on the approach you ought to take, but to question the underlying facts is dangerous and puts us in a dangerous position, and in my opinion is not leadership. On the claim of partisanship, I was standing here with Hal Rogers, Republican congressman, earlier today, announcing some great projects, thanking the last administration for what they did on them. Yesterday, I met with our Republican Secretary of State to work out a voting plan, and we're having good progress on that. I work every day with members of the different parties. It's just when people want to attack or don't agree with you, oftentimes they just throw out this. It's partisan. It's partisan. If I was making decisions based on politics, you'd see very different decisions because I've tried to make the right decisions each time, not the popular ones. Let me grab the list.
Reports on vaping and how that is potentially it's easier to catch it and the effects are more extreme. With mostly in teens and 20-year-olds who are vaping, which are concerned.
I said this before, so Karen has asked me about vaping, and I didn't say it very well the last time, but I've had a good day today. I got to talk with the lawmakers and had all sorts of challenges this morning to deal with. So I don't know the answer to that. And like the governor would often say, I'll get back to you on that. I'll have to look into the vaping. That's one thing I don't have right now. And I know there's kids who watch me, so I'm just going to say, if you don't know an answer, just say you don't know it, and you can go look it up in a book or somewhere else. So I'll get you an answer for next week, Karen, okay? I'm sorry, and don't vape. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Public Health Commission messed up, but the governor can clean up for me. Don't vape.
My job, my next lifetime. Before we go to the next question, I missed one of the most important parts of our reporting, and that's that we've lost an additional 6 Kentuckians today. So let's make sure we continue those green lights and ringing those bells. That's for these families. Regardless of where you fall on other things, let's honor those that we've lost. 82-year-old woman from Jefferson, 74-year-old man from Taylor, 89-year-old woman from Jefferson, 56-year-old man from Carter County, 80-year-old woman from Fayette County, and a 92-year-old man from Jefferson County. And again, there are those that want to say that this is only harming people of a certain age. 56 isn't old. At least I hope not. But even on this, a 74-year-old could easily be that grandparent caring for a grandchild. And having been in a situation where a kid asked who would take care of me, let's make sure we remember that it's not okay to lose somebody early just because they're older. Let's never be that callous. Lawrence.
You mentioned cases today in children of school age. Do you know more broadly the number or percentage of cases in school age children, where they are, and the implications for opening schools?
So the question is the one I'd mentioned because a couple of counties have indicated that they're going to go ahead and open, and one of them is on the red list for the White House, which says that their belief is that positivity rate is over 10% in that county. That's Warren County. It's on almost every page of the report they send us. It's the county that they're worried about second most, right after Jefferson. And so I talked about 6 kids school age that ought to be going to school tested positive yesterday, and then Hardin County another 6. So our line list that we put out every day has the ages. I don't think that we have a full analysis of the last couple days. It is significantly increasing, but on our website we have the breakdown of the percentage of cases in what age group. What that does not tell you, though, is the disparity in testing and testing amounts. If 300,000 people between 40 and 50 have gotten tested, and only 12,000 kids between 0 and 18 have been tested, that part is not in the data. So that's maybe something that we could add. There is definite concern that kids of the age that would be going back to school are not being tested unless they have symptoms, because the tests aren't pleasant for kids either. I've been through that with mine. Now, we are working on that. There are some more palatable tests now that are out there. So the question is, if you think you're ready to open at the height, what I hope is the height of the pandemic, what are you doing to make sure on the first day somebody doesn't walk in who's positive? And then what are you doing to make sure that you catch the asymptomatic people that are in too? And that would be regular testing if you could. We can deal with some of that if the virus is not as hot as it is right now, but look at Greene County's numbers today. If we know based on the number of testing that we had multiple digits of people in Greene County infected, we know there's a lot more than that. It just, right now, it's just too dangerous. I'm not trying to I want our kids to be in school. I believe in public education. I'm a product of it. I want our kids to be in school. But I'm not going to experiment with our kids. And even if a parent says they're willing, I'm not going to stand up here and make a recommendation that I believe puts our kids in harm's way and sets the school and school system up for failure. I know there's some superintendents that are getting pressure from parents, but I tell you what, the first time that something's shut down and they have to quarantine, the superintendent's going to tell that parent, you told me we should open, and they're going to look at him and say, you told us it was safe. First time that a community has 900 people that are quarantined, and that's going to end up including parents of those kids, and they can't go to work, that business is going to say, wait a minute, you said that we could do this safely. I believe that there is a time when we can, and I believe that all those plans that people worked on are going to be really important. I just believe we have to be patient enough to do it at the right time where it can work. Tom.
I haven't checked today, but actually the SEC and ACC are still going on. Basically dropping as well.
The question is on college sports. A lot of major conferences have made the decision to at least postpone. While we are still seeing all the data, and while universities have significantly more resources than our high schools or middle schools, it sends a pretty powerful statement that the Big Ten doesn't believe that they can keep their athletes safe enough to go forward. And when you look at the dollars involved, you know what, that's a pretty gutsy decision based on how people are going to react. I mean, no college football. So it's a really gutsy decision. I believe that the other conferences, I hope at best, are doing a wait and see. But I also don't think that we ought to be opposed to at least considering moving sports in a way to where low-contact sports can be played at a time when it's less safe for high-contact sports to be played and high-contact sports to be played later. And part of me says, instead of this patchwork, if everybody would agree to do something all at the same time, then we could have a legitimate, real season that could work for the student athletes. But I do want to give those conferences time. They got their own doctors. They got their own epidemiologists. None of their doctors are as good as Dr. Stack, but they still have them. Al?
Superintendents are asking for county-level positive test rates. Are those available from every local health department? And how reliable are they for small counties? Would it be more reliable to include or at least take into account the numbers from adjoining counties?
The question is on positivity rates on a county-by-county basis that some superintendents would like to see. We think that there would be a large rate of error for many counties of those just because of the lack of testing. But while some superintendents want to see that to make their decision, let's not ignore that in one of the counties with the highest rates, according to the White House, it looks like they're still going to open. So there's data, and then there's what you do with it. Doing it by county or by region might be easier than by county. But when the White House came here, when Dr. Birx came here, she looked at us and said, with your number of counties, at the time it was 60, that are listed in the yellow or the red, you have a statewide problem. And her advice was, you got to take statewide steps. And where some of us will think, well, what about in the more rural parts of Kentucky? This virus is now hotter in our rural regions. They talk about that every day on the White House calls that we have, and they're seeing more and more outbreaks, and we're seeing that in some of the school that have had to start and stop in other places. I just want this to be successful, and I believe overall where we are in a state right now, just about any school district is going to have a real challenge. If it's places where they don't have a lot of testing, I'm worried about when they will find out exactly how much spread could have occurred. Nick?
About private schools, you had mentioned that for the private schools that do plan on staying open, and even the public schools, they should be asking for regular testing of students and staff. Even state universities are not doing that.
Right.
So, I mean, does it need to happen at state universities too? It's kind of both sides.
Oh, the question is on a question I answered yesterday, apparently not well enough, but about universities and whether they need to have regular testing. Yes. I mean, they, whether it's faculty to monitor, whether it's students, but it doesn't always have to be a university program. For instance, where we got a drive-through site coming up in Lexington, we've got other facilities. We need our institutions to do things. We need our individuals to take responsibility on it too. We need our student organizations that may have more contact to promote it as well. And again, even with the level of testing we have, which is significant, when you take on something big like these reopenings, and with the level of contacts that are there, all of a sudden, what you'd like to see, sure, becomes greater, especially at one of these times. How frequently people do it, we're tested every 2 weeks, except the day that we had to move it up a little bit. It requires being real flexible. And again, I just appeal to our schools that I believe that this is a significant risk to the life and health of the teachers, of the students, of the parents they come home to, of the caregivers. And yes, there are lots of drawbacks to not getting in school, and that's why I want to do it. But the other thing is we've got to be successful in how we do it. Starting, stopping for a week, starting, getting a second outbreak, maybe not even coming back is not a good result. And if you go with your plan too early when the conditions aren't right, you don't get the success that you want. Catherine.
Follow-up to my first question. Have you heard from the Attorney General's office that they're close to completing their investigation? And if at the completion of that investigation the city is still in a state of unrest, would it then be appropriate to still go forward with the Derby?
The question is, have I heard a timeline from the Attorney General? No. To be fair, I haven't asked since that information on what he was waiting for came out. If there is no decision, would it be insensitive to go ahead with the Derby? I would hope that at the very least the Derby and Derby-related activities could work with our activists and our organizations to find appropriate ways to convey the right message, and hopefully they'll start those talks because right now I understand those feelings, and maybe by working together and talking together, there could be a positive resolution that maybe even amplifies voices out there that are giving voice to the frustration that is right, based on systematic racism through every part of our society.
In Warren County, do we have any idea or any sense of what's causing the rise in cases there?
Warren County has had a significant number of cases now for over a month. I think we are a couple of months. It at one point was near the top of the entire country. In cases per capita, it is continuing to spread and significantly spread. It is not under control in that county. I do believe local leaders are pushing the mask mandate. I have heard that there are those that refuse in the community. I would hope with everything that is going on that everybody would wear it. Now, they do have a lot of different things that go on in the community. They've got a great university. They are one of the larger cities and counties in the Commonwealth. So they have more people, and they probably also have more people coming in from other counties every day to work. It's one of the reasons that you also see it with Fayette, and one of the reasons that you also see it with Jefferson. Stu.
Tested since March. Roughly, what percentage already come in with postal symptoms when they get their tests?
That's one that we'll have to see if we actually have a number on. The question is how many people who are coming to get tested since March have symptoms versus are asymptomatic. I don't think we have that reported to us at the moment. It's especially complicated with the drive-through. Now, on the positives, do we get whether they were symptomatic or asymptomatic?
When they do the investigations, we get some of that. Depends on how much people participate. We don't know in general.
Right. Right. So only for the positives do we perhaps have information on symptomatic versus asymptomatic. If they are asymptomatic, then they would not have had the symptoms when they went in to get tested. We'll see what we can do to pull that data together. Some of the challenge on this, which Dr. Stack just said off camera, is people have to tell you. When we call them, when they're positive, when we're doing the contact tracing, they have to provide that information. Some do more than others. Debbie?
Getting back to program review committee today, several of the lawmakers criticized the decision to postpone the school year and continue to question why it couldn't be done and why local plans hadn't been taken into consideration. Along with pointing out that people who die from this tend to be older adults and very few kids.
The question is apparently on program review committee. I think that they're pushing back against the school recommendation, saying kids don't die from this, mainly older people do. Well, the more kids you have exposed, the more, sadly, opportunity there is for a bad outcome. We still don't know the long-term ramifications of COVID-19. We have seen some of the Kawasaki-like conditions arise in our kids. We have had good outcomes there, but remember that kids can and do, we're seeing, spread this virus. Every one of those employees inside the school, every one of those caregivers that they come home to, every grandparent raising their grandchild. And I'm not arguing that school districts don't have good plans, but your plan can only work if conditions on the ground allow it. Again, I mentioned that the D-Day, the invasion of Normandy, was supposed to happen the day before, but weather didn't allow it. Could you have imagined if Eisenhower had said, well, the weather might keep us from winning, but heck, we have a great plan, let's go ahead. I mean, let's make sure that we can celebrate those plans, but we have a great plan, let's see if it works. I read that from a state legislator. Let's see if it works. Let's make sure we have a good degree of certainty that we think it can work well, as opposed to just rolling the dice with the health and safety of our kids. And remember, it's all the adults around them. What about that kid that, yeah, sure, isn't likely to have difficult symptoms, but their parents work in a long-term care facility? Okay.
I've talked to several superintendents and school leaders who talk about their plans, and some are going in-person or hybrid plan, be it before the recommended date or after the date. But what I found is there's been a lot of confusion as far as those who can't do a pod system. How close can they be if they're wearing masks? Many are assuming if you've got a mask on, you're going to 6 people travel together. Could you clarify?
Well, I believe that again, I think digital learning until September 28th gives us a good chance of success, protects the health and safety of our teachers who are being asked to take on more risk than many of our healthcare workers with less PPE, a group of kids that have a harder time complying with the mask mandate and staying away from each other. And I hear very little on the responses of going forward about, number one, the actual virus, and number two, the fact that those employees don't get the choice, really. And their health is then put in jeopardy. For those that are doing it that can't do a pod system, I don't think it's safe right now with the pod system. Oh, well, after the 28th, I believe that a hybrid system that even if they can't do full pod, that decreases capacity as much as possible, and then has less interaction between groups of kids will make it safer. And let me be clear, I don't want any school that's going to go back in to fail, because that means kids are going to get this virus and it's going to spread through their community and people are going to be harmed. And I hope they take every precaution they can. And I hope, in many ways, I hope I'm wrong about whether it's safe right now. But it's the height of the virus. It's simply not safe. It does give people more time to continue. They have good plans, but I'd hope that we could always refine those to make them better. And I think adding that mental health service piece for those kids that are going to be in quarantine, I tell you what, they could talk to the parents too. I could have used, if they're wearing masks.
Do you plan to attend the Kentucky Derby and give out that winner's trophy?
I haven't made a final determination of whether or not I'm going to attend the Derby. It's going to be based on the plans, the conditions on the ground at that point, how socially distant it can be. I will have to have a good plan, which I think they're putting together for my review to directly attend. Tom?
Governor,
Last one.
about the last 5 months, I think you spent all your time either here or next door.
Yeah.
And I understand you're going to be hitting the road tomorrow.
Yes.
What's it going to be like to get out there?
So tomorrow will be my first trip outside of back and forth from the governor's mansion and here, and then getting to see my son play baseball, my daughter ride, and getting to go to more of those. That's not half bad. Tomorrow we're going to travel to Pikeville. There's a children's medical center that's being opened. The steps that are being taken we felt good with. Everybody I'm traveling with is going to have been tested within the 24 hours before. The event itself is going to be very socially distanced. I'm not going to do a lot of these in the near future, but I do want to show people that they can be done if done thoughtfully and if done right. The Pikeville Medical Center has put a lot of time and a lot of energy into it. This is a really important project for the health of the children in that area. I can tell you it does feel a little strange to know I'm going to be anywhere else, but at least as governor, I got the opportunity to get there and get back pretty quickly. All right, I want to thank everybody. I know it's been a tough week. Right now, I think we still have the opportunity to be at the end of the week pretty close to the plateau that we have seen in other weeks. We'll be doing a video update tomorrow and probably Saturday. My guess is news release on Sunday, and we'll be back here at 4 p.m. on Monday. But just remember, everybody here that's providing advice and recommendation, they're just trying to do their very best. We are faced in a worldwide health pandemic, the likes that none of us have ever faced before, and it's taking the lives of Kentuckians, it's putting others in danger. We are trying to do the best we can and give the best advice for health and safety. And I guess I never expected, though, it's a tough time, that all the names and the other stuff would be thrown out. And listen, I signed up for the job, direct them at me, but everybody else who's working hard, let's make sure we respect what they're doing and their professionalism. But let's also show that we're better people, that we can disagree about things, but when people are trying and really trying, well, let's make sure that we recognize their great efforts. COVID is testing us in a lot of different ways. It's testing our humanity. It's testing our selflessness versus our selfishness. It's testing whether we can leave politics behind, make the right decisions, and support the right decisions regardless of party. So right now we're really being tested, and even in this last decision, with what type of people are we? And how do we talk with each other? How do we discuss? How do we even disagree? COVID is making us care about each other. Let's make sure that we recognize that and put it a part of our daily life. And even with the noise of a presidential election that's out there, come on, we're facing something that happens once in every 100 years that calls us to be more than we have had to otherwise be, to be resilient, to be strong, and to be kind. Let's make sure we do it. For me, it's driven by my faith, which I'm getting to show off in a facial covering today. See y'all Monday at 4.